We going Bigfooting again tonight, baby. So hold on to your seats. Welcome back to Calling All Beings. I'm your host, DJ, along with the host of the most, my brother, Money Nathan, the technical director of this joint, the executive producer. Money Nathan, how are you, brother?
I'm good, man. Doing well. Happy Monday, everybody. Kicking the week off here with some Bigfoot. Love it.
Yes. I'll tell you what, and you know what? She just got out of work, just escaped the last patient, so she could come and hang out with Tim, Dana, talk a little bit about Bigfoot and find out what influenced these peoples. And you know I'm talking about a study of UAPs. Debs!
Hi, everyone. I'm feeling like a future human today. It's like sprang forward.
Oh, my God. I'm going to tell you what, man. Michael Masters loves you, man. He does. Mm-hmm. Because of that, man. And we'll tell Tim and Dana who Michael Masters is. UFO community, Bigfoot community coming together. And look at that, man. This is my friend right here from Tulsa, Oklahoma, the Bigfoot badass, the OG, Matt Knapp.
What's up? What's up?
How you doing, brother?
Doing okay. As it was stated, an early week show. Not used to this, but it's nice for a little change of pace.
That's right. We mix
Get
it up.
rid of that daylight savings time, baby. We don't need that, Nathan.
Yeah, we don't need that stuff.
No, we don't need. Don't come around no more. And Matt and I talked about something that the cabbies are working up. Probably won't happen till this summer, but we'll have a pretty huge show. It looks like based on the contact that we made, and we'll be streaming it on both channels. It'll be pretty dope.
A big extravaganza.
Can I get it? But right now, I want to introduce these folks who we had the pleasure of meeting as a result of interviewing Mr. Matthew Knapp, who is the quickest person to make it into cab since Nathan and I.
Okay, a day one acceptance letter. Just
I'm telling you what.
That's what happens when you leave the door open. I just slide right in the back seat.
It's true. Gotta watch him.
It's like us going to scout for football, and we see, we head down to the field and we watch this guy, this left tackle, and he pancakes like 4 people in a row, and we're from OU, and we're like, "Yep, we'll take him. Bring him over here, man. We're going to get that letter of intent." All right. So on that show, we had this author, these 2 authors. They're also husband and wife, and they came up with excellent questions. I'm like, look at this, man. He's coming up with better questions than me. Love these people. I listen to their podcast. They're on, I think it's the Unknown Radio Network. We're going to ask them about it here in a second, but it's an honor to have these guys come on for a fireside chat where we're going to interview them for a little bit, and then we're going to go around the table. So put your hands together for Tim and Dana Halloran. Hey! Yeah!
Yay!
Hey, everyone.
Hi, guys.
I don't know how we can beat that intro.
I'm serious.
Such an honor to be here with this group.
Yeah,
we're here with this is like media legends here we're on the podcast with. So
nah, nothing like that. We're just a bunch of jokers that come on here. We do a little bit of fun, a little bit of seriousness, and then we do a little bit of fun, a little bit of seriousness, and it looks like an electrical sine waves, if you know what I'm talking about, alternating current.
Absolutely.
So here, the interviewers get interviewed.
I know.
And I know what we have to talk about. But
well,
it's all right.
So I heard another pod that you guys were on where, Tim, you said that Dana got you into this topic. Is this correct?
That is 100% correct. She's the one who hooked me in. Yeah, 5 years ago, I wouldn't have been here, And do you want to get into how she did that?
Please.
So I'm like the Bigfoot. I'm like the Bigfoot person. Like I've always been interested in the subject. Watched all the shows. You like Monster Quest and Finding Bigfoot and just anything that I could watch. For a while there, had our son Gabriel, our youngest, really interested. But now he's 19 and in college and studying biology, and he's obviously becoming less
Jeff Meldrum. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, maybe. Who knows?
There was a joke when we interviewed Jeff. We have another son who's he's getting ready to get his PhD, and we were joking with him, and then Jeff, Dr. Jeff Meldon, we said, hey, we're going to try to get our son to come out there and postdoc there, but neither. I mean, Jeff probably would have done it, but our son wasn't interested.
No. So anyway, back to the story. So I, just kept on asking Tim, I really want to go to a Bigfoot conference. And he's like, okay, fine, whatever you want. So we went to the Ohio Bigfoot conference, and wow, we really picked a good one to go to for our first time. And we just kind of like got embraced by everybody there. I don't know what that was all about, but
it was
really cool because like
Authenticity.
I got to see. So like Dr.
Thanks,
Jeff
Nathan.
is like my he's like my what do you call it?
Crush,
guru,
maybe.
rabbi.
My Bigfoot crush, my man crush. And so
He's awesome.
I guess it was like our first day when we just arrived. So
Yeah.
we're at the lodge, we're going to check in, and oh my God, guess who's there checking in too?
and I'm busting jokes with him.
I'm like, oh, Tim, come here, because Tim has no idea who this.
Well, I knew who
was.
he was, but I didn't know how. But
so I'm like, Tim, come here. I'm like, please, that's Dr. Jeff. Oh my God. And so then he goes over there and starts talking to him. I felt like I was in high school again, like, oh my God, no, don't talk to him. Oh my God. So he started talking to him, and then I came over and I just said something really goofy and stupid.
Yeah.
What did I say?
I don't know. I said that I told him, I said, you kind of look familiar. What's your name? Knowing that he's, we're at the Bigfoot conference, and he kind of laughed and chuckled, but we just got, it was an interesting week. I mean, we kind of stood out, I guess, because we weren't Bigfooters, and I had no idea how to dress for a Bigfoot conference. Zero.
Do I wear heels? Do I wear a wedge?
I didn't. Do I need a cocktail dress for like the VIP dinner event? Like I just didn't know.
Do I should wear furry feet?
There's like people in like flannel shirts and holy jeans at the VIP event. So we probably stuck out a little bit because we needed to basically go to like shopping at Columbia. And that's pretty much the attire. Everybody is very like hiking, outdoorsy kind of dress. So that's probably why we stuck out.
So Nathan, write that down. It's not Eddie Bauer. It's Columbia Sports. Maybe even REI. I would.
Yep.
We have an REI not that far away. I guess like an hour and a half away. But Columbia for us is like the closest.
I love Columbia Sports, man. Yeah. I have one follow-up though that I want to ask you. I think this is it's a general question, but I want to ask you this, Dana. And the reason I want you to think about this, of all these different phenomena, there are UFOs, there are cryptids, there's the ghost community. They're very closely related with us. And then of course there's Bigfoot, which I think it's kind of its own subset of cryptids. I don't think of Bigfoot community as cryptid community. I think they're kind of like two separate communities that can join. What is it about Bigfoot that resonated with you, that you said, I was into it? What is it about this creature that draws you in?
It's a good question.
That is a good question. We need to remember this to write it down for our podcast. I'm joking.
We'll bring DJ in to ask that one question every
write
podcast.
That down. That was really good. But that is a great question. So I think the thing with Bigfoot that resonates so much with me, because I, obviously I have a pretty open mind, but I'm definitely not like a tinfoil hat wearing kind of, I'm sorry if any of you guys, hey, wait, tinfoil hat can mean lots of things, right? No, I'm like, I'm cool with the UFO situation. But back to Bigfoot, you know what it is? There's just so much evidence. And the most compelling evidence we have is footprints, lots of footprints who podiatrists couldn't even fake. You have somebody like Dr. Jeff Meldrum, who's, who specializes in bipedal locomotion and the study of it and anthropology. So, I mean, they're not fake. Okay. So like if you go for a walk in your backyard and you see like a bear print, you're going to be like, oh my God, there's a bear here. I never saw a bear. I never heard a bear, but I know there's a bear because there's a footprint of a bear. So why can't we just think like that with Bigfoot? We have footprints that don't belong to any other animal.
Right.
Why can't we just say there's something there we don't know exactly everything about it, but we can tell a lot by a footprint. And you can tell how, how it walks. You can tell how much it weighs, how tall it is, more or less. So that, for me, that's what really does it for me, are the footprints.
We'll circle back to this, because it actually, because I got to turn this over to Nathan, and we got to get Debs, and we got to get Matt in, so I can't hog up any more of this. But it's even before that. It's even before the evidence. There's something about this creature that drew you in, even before all the evidence.
Okay, you're right. Oh, you are so good.
That's okay though. But we'll continue. We'll circle back. We got time. But let me get the money man in here, because he knows how to ask some questions. The day they taught asking bad questions, he didn't show up to class.
I just skipped that one. Yeah. Well, I'm actually gonna piggyback on your question, DJ, because I would like your perspective, having gone to these conferences and met so many of these folks who've had experiences, who are doing the research, doing the investigations. What is it about the personalities of these individuals that stands out to you? Because I mean, just like with UFO folks, there doesn't seem to be a common thread, and I would bet it's probably true in your community as well. But is there anything that you could say is common about is it openness? Is it their curiosity? Like what is it that brings these folks together?
I mean, I can jump in, I guess. Yeah, and Nathan, I'll say, we're going to open this up. This is our community. Anything unexplained should be one big community. That's how we feel.
Right.
So
perfect answer.
I think, and Matt, obviously Matt can attest to this probably better than any of us here on the call. I think probably 60%, but at least half the people had an experience, and then it got them into it. And then the other half, I think they got hooked on watching it on TV, or it started, back to when they watched In Search of as a kid, and something piqued their curiosity. Or we hear a lot of the folks I interviewed for the book said it was the Legend Boggy Creek movie. They saw it in the drive-in theater, and it got them fascinated. And I think, for me, I think that's what I see would be the common thread. Would be an experience.
Is that what you wanted, Nathan? Is that what you're looking for? Because I got the impression
that was a personality type.
No, it was like I would say 95% of the people there are outdoors people. They're people who loved hiking, love fishing, hunting, farming, and obviously having those types of hobbies is probably what led them to either have a sighting or sound or something, or just to make them curious about nature in general. But I would definitely say 95% of the people, like, we love hiking.
And even if it's a roadside crossing, which are 50% of the sightings, those are still in rural areas. So if you see a roadside crossing, you're probably an outdoors person, because you're there for a reason.
So the huge thing I think they all have in common is they are outdoors people.
And that's so rare today, right? I mean, we're spending so much time inside. So for folks who are willingly getting out there and getting into nature, that's becoming a rare and rarer thing today. So that's a great answer. I love that.
And if you hadn't noticed, there's a campfire going right underneath Dana.
Is there? Where is it? Oh my God.
You look at the bottom of the screen.
I can dry my nails. I just painted them.
And if your boots and stuff. All right, Debs, go ahead, my friend.
Yeah, I was hoping that maybe you could tell us a little bit more about the book that you put together, and maybe some of the theories that were in that book that might draw people in interest-wise.
Yeah, and guys, let's just, for the record, Tim wrote the book. I'm not the author of the book. I'm just like the inspiration and
and
the podcaster with him. But he wrote the book all on his own. So
I know, but she inspired me. So we're a team. We're still saying that. So I mean, Deb, we could talk so much about. So let's start with. I guess you want to start with the theories of the people in the book, or you want to start with how we came up with the book, how I came up with the idea of the book?
Well, honestly, as an outside observer, of someone who hasn't studied as much about Bigfoot, everything is interesting, right? Like, so we just don't know about the big people. We don't know like who Dr. Jeff is to everybody, things like that. So anything you want to tell us, I'm also just more interested in the theories that they might have talked about too. So.
Right. And that's an amazing question, which kind of leads right into why I wrote the book. So, after a few years, we just became became friends with a lot of these people. And we came back from a conference once, and I started listening to podcasts, and we started watching more documentaries and things on TV and wherever we could grab it. Listen to Matt's. Matt started listening to Matt's podcast every single week, which is it's a no-brainer there. Bigfoot Crossroads, for everyone who doesn't know that.
Can I get an amen?
And one day I just had this idea, Deb. I said, I wasn't frustrated, but as a quest, I would hear somebody on a podcast, and I said, "Who is that?" I had no idea who it was, and then I said, "How come I don't know who this person is? How would I get ramped up to really figure out who all these people are?" Just like the question you just asked, "Who's Dr. Jeff?" Obviously, there's a few that I got to know, but so I said, "Wouldn't it be great to start?" Of course, I couldn't get it all in one book, but have a book where anyone, if you're new into this subject, if you're just interested, or if you're seasoned and want to learn about who's doing the research or and that's where the title is, who's influencing the subject. So it opens up not just to people doing research. It could be, however you're influencing the subject, whether you're a TV host or a guy like Les Stroud, Survivor Man, who we interviewed for the book. And so
and
that's
we also interviewed him on the podcast too, which was really cool.
Yeah. So that's how it started, and that's how we came up with the idea. We can later talk about, the title and that experience, how we got it going. But I think theory. So, the concept of the book, Deb, was I asked, it's an interview style book. So every chapter is an individual. And then I've got a ton of other stuff blended in. The publisher and actually the creative art of the book, and also he's in the book, is Doug Hychek. And for the audience who may not know who Doug Hychek is, he's a producer of Monster Quest. He's also the producer of their documentary Sasquatch Legend Meets Science. He's the producer of Mysterious Encounters. And that's just a few things. I mean, he's got a resume that's insane in the movie, in the production. I mean, he used to study and film wildlife animals.
He's a hunting guide from Minnesota too. So very, very experienced outdoorsman.
So so Deb, you wanted to know, the question you asked him was
the theories.
What are the theories, the general theories of some of the people that you interviewed of the existence of Bigfoot? Was that your question, Deb?
Yeah, that's the part that I found most intriguing reading about the book. Yeah, I would like to, but I know it's a long answer.
So, well, I know. Well, but I kind of want, and I'm sorry, Deb. It's I get a little passionate about it. I was trying to through that process. I had a list of questions I asked everybody, and some of them, everyone got some of the same questions. And that where it comes to theories come in. And one of the questions I asked everybody, I think everybody, and some of the questions were related to that person's background, was, what do they think, what's their theory on what they think Bigfoot are? So you'll see in my first book, because there's going to be volume 2, you're probably going to see what we'll say most of what they call flesh and blood. But that doesn't mean where they're from. But most of the folks I have in the book are flesh and blood. Although I didn't want to solely do that, and it wasn't by choice.
When you say flesh and blood,
it means they think Bigfoot's a biological.
These guys are some people believe that Bigfoots are just biological, and other people believe that there's something
more to them than that,
like some sort of unexplained phenomena that goes with them, whether it be that they come from UFOs or they go into a different dimension, or so you were talking about the general theory. What is the common theory of a lot of the influencers of what Bigfoot was?
Of the ones in the book, most of them think it's a biological creature, an unidentified or undiscovered primate. Could be Gigantopithecus, could be Paranthropus, could be some other type of something close to us that they don't know. and then we had folks like Ron Moorhead and who believes that there was alien intervention, maybe before we even came around, and there's something there's an alien genome, then there's something that connects us and everything that's going on there. And then we had other folks who still might think it's biological, but they don't want to be closed-minded to it because they've seen things, whether they're orbs or UFOs or UAPs, in the same areas. So they don't want to be totally closed-minded to it, and others don't want to hear it. So it had kind of a mix of individuals in the book, but I think probably 65% of them were, 70% of them
I would say more,
biological, or say they call them apers or whatever.
I would say like 80.
Yeah.
Like Ron is a super cool dude. He has the theory of, what do they call it? Woo?
Well, it could be. I mean,
woo is just something to attach a certain. If that person's woo, that means they're into kind of the weird aspect of whatever phenomenon you're talking about. But it can be used as to sort of take away value from what that person's opinion is. Right. What I'll say is this: are there humans that are able to, no kidding, connect with spirits, connect with, and like act as a medium? Are there humans that are proven they can do these things? Sure. So there's some humans that have these extraordinary abilities that perhaps I don't have, or Nathan or Deb or Matt doesn't have, or you guys don't have. There are those humans.
I don't know. It within the realm of thinking right now?
Is it within the realm of possibility that Bigfoots, some of them may have abilities that others don't have? Is that within the, if possibility is a gigantic cube, is it possible? It's possible. That's the thing. Of course, it's flesh and blood. If people have found feces, Matt has found tracks. People have seen them, smelled them. Some people have been physically struck by them, right? So we know that it exists. But does that mean that's the entire story? The answer is we don't know. I mean, I can't imagine there's somebody that knows. So at least if we leave open the door, just because there are humans that have abilities that we all don't have. Maybe it's within us, but we're not able to cultivate it. Well, maybe Bigfoot's the same. So with that, let's pass it over to Matt Knapp, and then we'll get to Julie's question for you. Julie's in our chat. Hello, Jewel of Indiana, who had a Bigfoot sighting as a child in Indiana. But anyway, go ahead, Matt, sir.
Oh, geez. I was just enjoying listening.
Well, sorry, it's time to go to work.
Oh, geez. Okay. First off, congratulations on the success of the book. If I'm not mistaken, you guys got was it Book of the Year in the Bigfoot world?
No.
Well, no. The from the International Cryptozoology Museum, or Cryptozoo News,
up in Maine,
the Hominology Book of the Year, and then Steve Coles and Squatch TV gave it the Book of the Year. But so yeah, it's great. It's awesome. Thank you.
No big deal.
Well, the book's really about everybody.
It's a unique book.
Yeah, it's really neat.
Because just like we were, talking, like I think Deb mentioned that she didn't know who Dr. Jeff Meldrum was, or you might not know who Peter Byrne is, or Lauren Coleman. But if you start to get interested in the Bigfoot world and you go to conferences or you see a documentary, you got like a chapter on that person, and so now you know who they are.
How did you guys choose who you were going to feature in the book?
That's a good question.
Yeah,
Matt.
that was
So, for the most part, I pirated names from like you, like to listen to your podcast or something. I would hear them, or we'd see them on TV. So you obviously you can come up with your generic list,
right?
And there was some I asked. I would ask a couple other people that I knew, or go to Doug Hychek or Matt Pruitt to say, hey, just get their idea. Obviously it's my book. I can put whoever I wanted in there, and then it was almost like dialing for dollars. I hate to say that because I had about 90 or so people listed, and now there's more. So it was really who I could get. I mean, obviously I had a few that I said had to find a way to get Dr. Jeff Meldrum in the book, and Peter Byrne, who's 97 years old. That was pretty important for me to get him in the book. And he's still doing great.
Yeah.
But I thought that was, I guess he was 96 probably when I talked to him. So then I just kind of went down the list, and whoever could get a hold of, we got some no's that just scheduling didn't match up. And then others, I think I only had one person that did not want to be in the book. And that's because they did not want to be involved in the subject anymore. So I 100% respected that. Had a lifelong conversation with that person, and that was interesting. So yeah, that's kind of how it was, Matt. I just kind of went down the list, and now and then I already have enough for a couple more books from the first list. So just kind of working through that now.
Who stood out like the most to you, would you say, out of everybody that you talked to and interviewed, that had maybe the most influential thoughts on the subject for you personally?
Yeah, that's so tough, because I've been asked that question before, and sometimes even like when Dana and I do the podcast, it changes every week.
Yeah, because we're like, oh my God, he was so cool, or she was so awesome, and then you're like, oh my God, we're never
Julie
gonna
loves
meet.
your hair.
Oh, thank you.
Julie in chat.
Hey, girl.
I don't know.
So I know what it is for mine, because as a podcaster interviewing,
it was Ron.
It was definitely Ron Moorhead.
Yeah.
So which was because I'm definitely like when it comes to Bigfoot, I really believe that it's just biological. But Ron opened my mind a little bit, and he's just a really cool dude, like super spiritual, super kind, full of love, kind of like I was really impressed with Ron Moorhead.
Yeah, and there's so many. I can't pick one, man. I wish I could. And that sounds like so political right now, that I'm playing the middle, I'm not going to pick one. But I remember, but you know what? Some one that kind of didn't surprise me. Diane Stocking, which is not because she's on the outside, she's kind of a tough woman if you don't know her, and that's great. I love it. And I wasn't sure. Not that I was timid about interviewing when I did the book. I just didn't know how it was going to go, and she is the best.
She is the best.
It was so fun, and we just had a blast.
Yeah, it was cool.
And every single interview had a different dynamic, and just had a bunch of fun interviewing everybody. There's a couple that I had a lot of fun. There's a gentleman by the name of Tom Shea in Kentucky, and Thomas is great, but he sometimes, and I told him this, I joke with Thomas, I said, he's tough. I don't think he's camera shy, but he's totally different in person than when you get him on the phone.
Oh my God, he's like, ticket.
Yeah. So, but yeah, there's a couple. There's just a bunch. So
I'll tell you what, Julie's question was basically what Matt just asked you. So Jules, we'll get you in during the fireside chat portion, which we about to launch into right now.
Woo-hoo.
So so in this part, Nathan, I guess I could start with one. It's fairly general, and then it's going to go through Tim and Dana first, and then it'll go down through Nathan, Deb, and Matt, and then it'll just keep going in a circle, unless you guys want to introduce your topic first. We could do.
You want to do DJ? Yeah.
Okay.
Because Dana doesn't know about this yet.
I don't know how to play this game.
Oh no, it's just
I forgot to warn him.
If you have one topic that you would like us all to consider, you would throw that topic on the table now. I would answer it, Nathan, Debs, and then Matt, and then it would be my turn, and I would give a topic, and everybody will
okay, so you start, DJ.
Okay.
All right.
So my question for you guys, and this will kind of get to where we were, it was, what aspect of Bigfoot do you find the most intriguing, yet has been the most difficult for you to believe, and why? And we'll start with you, Tim and Dana.
What was the question?
Okay.
So the first part was
which aspect of Bigfoot do you find the most intriguing, yet it was the most difficult for you to believe? So in other words, when someone told you, hey, we have a lot of evidence that Bigfoot is X or does X or is capable of X, and you're like, wow, man, that freaks me out.
I got it. So for me, and we're going right back to the Ron Moorhead interview that we did for him on our podcast. Ron Moorhead has audio of Bigfoot chatter.
Mm-hmm.
That by far, because I would have never thought, okay, Bigfoots communicate verbally, beyond, like with words or a language, obviously there's, normal primate sounds. And so when I heard the audio and looked into it more, I was totally freaked out. Like I speak fluent Italian, obviously, so I'm bilingual. Hey, right. But
Paisan.
Hey, paisano, ma che fai? So anyway, back to the story. So let's not get lost in Italy because it's such a cool place. But and I also taught English as well, living there, which is good because that's my mother tongue, right? So, and I could tell by listening to this chatter that it was a language, just from teaching English to people of all different types of languages and knowing more or less how their languages work. And also then having I think an expert basically.
Mm-hmm.
Who was that?
Scott Nelson.
Scott Nelson.
You're so good.
Yeah.
So what did Scott Nelson do?
He's a cryptolinguist and he's from the Navy.
Right.
Navy. Yep.
And so
those guys fly around, they listen, and they listen to languages, and they basically translate, gather intel that way.
So he confirmed that this was not some kind of mumbo jumbo garble that somebody's faking. It actually has aspects to it, patterns to it that represent a real language. So yeah, for me, that answers. What was the second part of the question?
That's probably
that was it. I mean, you answered it. It's just something you were surprised that they could actually have a language, because that takes them from just like a gorilla just huffing and puffing around the zoo or around their natural habitat to they're actually communicating and maybe speaking about Ron and his group over there. So Tim, do you have an answer for that real quick?
Yeah, I'll try to make mine a short and
okay.
Don't be catty.
It might sound weird, but for me, when you see the Patterson Gimlin film, the first time, I go back to when I was a kid, and you're like, maybe when I was a kid, I thought that was it. But then later, as you got older and looked at it, before I was really in the subject, you look at it like, that's just a person in the suit. And that's the first thing that comes to your mind. And there's still days I look at that and I'm not 100%. I don't think any of us can ever be 100% on that because we weren't there. And then listening and listening to all the evidence that was collected around that, and having people like Bill Munns and Dr. Jeff Meldrum and other folks who've broken down that film, and they show muscle patterns and just different things that it's a head scratcher. It really is. And we talked to a primatologist, Dr. Esteban Sarmiento, who's he's seen some weird things out there too, but he won't come out and say Bigfoot's a biological creature or anything until he sees one. But he said there's enough in that film from his experience to not have an answer. There's not enough to say it's real, and there's not enough to say it's fake in his mind.
Yeah, and you guys know what the Patterson Gimlin film is, right? It's
oh my God.
The one from 1967. I just want to include all of your viewers because I know, but it's important to know it's that old film from back in the day that scientists are looking at it and reimaging it and being like, this is not somebody in a costume.
Yeah, I don't want to put a percentage on it. I would be far, far less likely to get anyone to convince me that someone could put a suit on and do that in 1967. I just don't believe it. So I don't want to put a percentage because I believe in God. I haven't seen him. You know what I mean? I mean, you believe in a lot of things. That I believe that film is genuine, and that's the way that those guys came upon that, the shock when he's falling off the horse and getting up and trying. I mean, is exactly it's a genuine reaction. And then when you put all the other evidence together that they were two cowboys from Yakima that came, like this Tom Cantrell says, came 600 miles when they could have just gone in the woods in Washington and probably found one if they would have known. But anyway, let's go to Money Nathan with that question. Nathan, what is the most interesting thing, the most difficult for you to believe, and why?
Yeah, that's a good one. I'm pretty open-minded to a lot of the aspects of Bigfoot, the different theories. One that really intrigues me the most, though, is the sort of mind speak aspect that some people report that they, have seen a Bigfoot or but then they're hearing things in their head, and it seemed to be associated with the encounter. And so that's a big one for me. Would definitely love to get your thoughts on that, but I don't know if I can go back to them or I should pass it to.
Do it however you want to do it.
Yeah, I would love to get your take on that from what you've heard.
In regard to the mind speak, I mean, we have one witness, when we talked to Diane Stocking, who is like, so she's a researcher, and she's just like how do you describe Diane? She's very direct, very matter of fact, pleasant person, very pleasant, but there's no sweet, sweetening anything with her. So she also comes across to me as somebody who doesn't get scared easily. So she was having an experience where she was hearing things.
She followed up on a witness report, and she went in the woods, she wasn't even in the woods. She went to the site where this incident, they were teenagers. And as she's walking there, she got that feeling of dread, and she could hear something says, "Turn around and get the heck out of here."
So it's not like somebody was speaking in her head, but she did get a feeling of, I need to not do this. And we're talking about like a pretty brave lady, and serious researcher. So she's like, I don't know why I turned around, but I just did. So if you want to include that in with mind speak, I don't know. It could be infrasound. Right. It could be, who knows?
Rick Taylor, Les Stroud a couple of times. Many other people. It's just
Les Stroud had the same thing.
Yep.
For a researcher to say, "Hey, I don't believe that's a thing," is like people saying, "Hey, there's no such thing as UFOs." Well, guess what? Now we have 30 pages of legislation about studying UFOs. But if I would have asked you that 3 years ago, UFOs, not a thing.
Yeah, so and I think we don't know. Had a what's that?
No, the thing is you can't say it's not a thing. You could say, I haven't experienced it. I haven't seen it. It's possible.
Now, Matt Mays has had, Matt's had some interesting things going on out there. Matt.
This Matt.
Yeah, we've had some Matts in the book.
We have so many Matts in our life.
Yeah.
But sorry, Matt.
Very popular name in the Bigfoot world.
It is.
God bless him.
It is.
All right. Debs, most interesting, intriguing aspect about Bigfoot that you learn, but most difficult to believe?
Well, I think for me, I have a little bit of trouble with the portal dimensional thing, simply because I think that they're flesh and blood also. There's a lot of reasons to think that. I even think, the mind speak works because it's infrasound. That's what I think. It's all like really explainable to me, but the portal thing, I kind of go towards like what Micah Hanks said about it, that they just are really good at camouflage.
I just say it could be both biological and they're
well, Ron Moorhead, I'll go back. Ron Moorhead thinks it's quantum physics where it's energy, and then others think there's some type of thing where they can, camouflage themselves really well,
kind of like an octopus,
right? Or like the predator. Everyone always goes back to that, but which may be at the extreme, but definitely interesting.
Or them just living in their environment and becoming so at one with their environment that they know subtleties of how to hide, especially hiding with motion. Not moving is the biggest thing. I was in the woods yesterday and I was like saying, man, I can't see 8 feet into the brush here in Northwest Florida. So I don't know. I think there may be multiple things at play to us. Leah Prime, who's one of our cabbies, asked me at the UFO conference whether I thought there was any aspect to Bigfoot which was not just simple biological humanoid / half human, half animal living in the woods. And I said, well, there's no evidence that we have that says it's anything more, but that doesn't necessarily mean that there isn't more to the story. That's like the glowing eyes. We'll get to that. Matt, what's your take, brother?
See, I had an answer, and then you said the glowing eyes.
I'm sorry, brother. Go ahead, man. Do your thing.
No, do your whole thing. I don't know which one to pick. I've got a laundry list, man. I've got a laundry list. Okay. As a podcast host, I feel for my personal show that I like to remain neutral. I allow the guests to share their thoughts and their beliefs and their opinions. It's all about them. Very seldom anymore, at least, do I give my own opinions on things. But whenever it comes to the paranormal aspects, even though I grew up experiencing paranormal events firsthand, I've always had a very difficult time with the paranormal stuff. And probably the biggest one of all is the ability to cloak themselves or turn invisible. If it is flesh and blood, a physical being, then that means they can't do that. That's not how physical beings work. There has to be. So I guess it would basically be all the different subjects that make them, if they can have that ability, then they have to be something paranormal or supernatural. They can't be flesh and blood as we understand it. And from my own experiences, the physical evidence that I've personally found, along with the long history of physical evidence that, these creatures have left, what I saw with my own two eyes, what all witnesses describe, everything about them says they are from this planet and right in line with the primates that live on this planet. They've got fingers and toes and two eyes and a nose and a mouth and hair and everything, breasts, reproduction, everything. So whenever you start talking about the ability to turn invisible or the mind speak stuff, I agree with what you said earlier, that there are people that apparently have abilities that we can't explain. So can Bigfoot have that ability? Maybe.
Some,
but we don't even know if they're an animal or more towards human, if you want to separate the two. I understand that, humans are animals, so to speak, but there's just so much there's you're really getting into an area here, man. But yeah, I'll just stick with the ability to turn invisible at will to hide themselves, because why didn't Patty do it then?
Right. Good question. Yeah. Like I said, do they all have that ability? We don't all have some of these abilities. I don't know. I just don't know. But Nathan, I would just ask you, as far as we have people that have been abducted by UFOs that we believe have. So is that going through a portal? What does that mean, Nathan?
Yeah, that's
And could that happen to Bigfoot?
Yeah, I'm a little hesitant to respond because there's such a rabbit hole we can kind of go into,
right,
about the nature of reality itself, right? And I was just thinking about this while everyone was kind of chatting as well, and that's to animals which live in the forest, right? If they could communicate with each other, which they do in some way that that we don't. But imagine them saying, there's a creature out there that doesn't live in the forest, and it can get from this place to this place really quickly, and it can travel through the air in these giant metal tubes, and it can, it seems completely helpless in the wild. It wears these clothes that it makes in these giant factories. If you think about it from the other side of the coin, like, human beings are pretty phenomenal and crazy and different. And the differences between human beings and creatures in the wild are incredibly extreme. And I guess where I'm going with that thought is just that there's a lot about the world that I think in the 20th century, 21st century, we've inherited as assuming that we've got it figured out. Like, we kind of just know how the world is, but there's a lot about the world that we don't know. That there's a lot of mystery that is still there, and how things really interact, and we don't even understand how our consciousness works. So there's a lot of assumptions that we bring with us to any study, any endeavor, that I think are maybe a little too hasty. Like, they're really convenient and helpful, and they work most of the time, but the times which they don't work, which when you have a Bigfoot encounter, when you have a UFO encounter, it breaks your understanding of what is possible, right? And that's really what we're getting at with a lot of this phenomena, is it changes the possibility space for you. And when that changes, everything then becomes open on the table and up for debate.
Can I have your Cash App to Venmo you some money like right now? That's
got it. Got it.
So do you see why we love Nathan over here at Cabs, Tim and Dana? Do you understand?
100%.
All right.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, it's your turn, Nathan. Go ahead, brother.
Okay, yeah. So I'm going to ask, what would greater public validation of Bigfoot mean for you and also for the world, in your opinion?
Did you send that to Debs?
Yeah, I guess who does that go to? Yeah, okay. Deb. Let's start, Deb.
Oh, okay. Well, I think that we would learn a little bit more about things that we've just kind of ignored. Honestly, I think that's what we need to do. I feel like we kind of ignore things and we kind of get caught in ourselves. We're really absorbed with ourselves as humans and kind of discount a lot of the rest of the planet. I think it would force us to do that less and be more open-minded to, you know, I don't think a lot of people get the idea that there could be other intelligences. Like they really can't get into that. So I think that they would be forced to be more open-minded about that.
Yeah. Just adding another one. Deb said
I love that response. And
adding another one.
If I can kind of just quickly kind of jump in there on that, just tag on to what you just said there, Deb. There's a great book called Sapiens by
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I love
great.
that book.
It's great, right? It's great. But when you're reading it or listening to it, I listened to it because I was doing a lot of driving at the time. And even though you learn this when you're kind of going through school, but just hearing him kind of talk about it, there was a time in history where there were multiple human species that were coexisting on this planet together. Like, just think about that. Like, other species, other intelligent hominids occupying the space that modern humans that we think of occupy. They had tools, they had language, they had culture, and they aren't here anymore. At least that's what we think, right? So that, to me, like, just kind of grappling with that and accepting that idea, like, really does open things up quite a bit.
That's the book
especially against it. I'm sorry, go ahead, Debs.
That was the book that taught me about the 3-foot tall people.
Right, the hobbits, the Denisovans, right?
Deb loves the little people, man. I was talking about it when you put that against the backdrop that people today have difficulty getting along or just having an understanding with people who are of a different skin tone that are the same species as them or a different language they have a problem with. Imagine if it was as Nathan was talking about, not a Homo sapien, but perhaps an earlier version. It's and they probably were a lot better at it than we were. Matthew Knapp.
Oh, validation for so many witnesses. Just the psychological effect that it would have, the impact that it would have on so many people, both positive and negative. Very positive for the people who have experienced these things, and I think very negative for a lot of people who haven't. I think one of the biggest things about a public validation of this thing's existence would be the restructuring of the train of thought of everybody, an ego shock, so to speak, and then going through an understanding of what they actually are and what it means to be human on this planet. I can tell you from the people that I've talked to and my own experiences, whenever I was going out in the field and researching, we've talked about language, these things having a language and being able to communicate vocally to one another beyond just, rudimentary vocalizations. There's culture there. There's society there. What are their beliefs? Do they have religion? Things like that. Are they a type of people? So I think it would have a much greater impact than what people think about just on the surface in the long run.
Matt, is the fact of that there is a certain segment of society that does not want to see something that is covered in hair and potentially has a certain odor, to think of them that they could be on a level even close that they would deserve that kind of regard that we have for humanity? Is that an impedance to that happening?
Don't we still have racism?
Yeah, good point. Fair enough. Tim and Dana.
Good answer. Good answer. So, do you want us to go?
No, go ahead.
You want me to go? Thank you, baby.
So guys are so cute. They're so adorable, Nathan.
I think DJ and Nathan are going to have to sit next to each other next episode.
I know, that would be so cute. See,
we got to get DJ a wig though.
Yeah, it shows how much better looking he is than me when we're together in person. So it's difficult. It's challenging.
So I think what it would mean to me, if there was some, I mean, when you say greater public validation, I guess you mean like they found a body and we have like confirmation that it really exists.
Yeah.
In that case, for me, it would I don't know. I think it would satisfy my curiosity, but maybe it wouldn't. Maybe it would. There would be just a bunch of more questions then. But for me, it would be kind of cool to go back to that dinner party and be like, "You guys thought I was crazy, and now guess what?
I told you, Holmes.
I told you." How many? I mean, we were just out to dinner with some friends last night, and
they call us Bigfoot hunters.
What do they call us? They have like a name for us now. People make fun of us, but like the girl that was sitting across from me, who's a friend of mine, she kept on talking about Bigfoot as if it was just one Bigfoot. Well, where does he live? How does he? Honey, there's more than just one.
Yeah.
But anyway, I think for the world, I think it would be awesome. I think for the world, it would be awesome because we will have discovered a new living being here on the earth. It would probably be great for environmental reasons because we would be protecting land that they live on, and which is probably the reason what you were saying before, maybe why that might be something that is impeding the actual validation is how much just even in North America it could change our landscape and how things were governed and forested and protected.
Yeah.
Nathan could do quite a bit if we ask him to talk about the human construct of time. But if I were to ask you what's changed in your life in the last 36 months, there may not be very much. But if we go back 36 months and talking about this specific incident with dinner and people having a laugh about Bigfoot and you guys interested in this topic, 36 months ago, Tucker Carlson would have had a laugh about this topic. I can send you a video that we found on Twitter today where he spends like 15 minutes talking about all that he's learned from the Navy, from the Air Force, from Department of Defense officials about UFOs going into the water and exiting the water at Mach. So just think about that. When you think about hydrostatic drag and something like a undersea going vessel, okay? USOs as they call them. So that was ridiculous 36 months ago. Ain't so ridiculous now because there's, as I said, 30 pages of legislation in this year's NDAA, and an entire office stood up by the Pentagon and acknowledged publicly. So could be the same for Bigfoot. So they're laughing at you now, just like they laughed at UFO people. They're not laughing now because people are talking about it. Even I work for the Air Force. People talk about it. So you wouldn't have talked about it. I guarantee you wouldn't have talked about it during my career. And you wouldn't have probably talked about it 3 years ago either. But in something, I may be wrong about that, Nathan, about 36 months. It could be 24 months. But it's an entirely different landscape, this discussion, because every major news network is carrying it. So yeah, that should give you some hope. I guess it's down to me to answer this question now. So, what I would say about this question is, if you think that the landscape can't change where you become the majority and not the minority, no longer the tinfoil hat wearing wacko that's out talking about some hairy creature that probably doesn't exist, because we all know that it does exist. What I would say, and we had this discussion with my UFO friends about Bigfoot. Nathan was in on that conversation. And I was looking at writing a letter to a congressman named Tim Burchett of Tennessee, who I have heard. He has been an advocate for UFO disclosure openly on the floor and at the lectern. And I have heard that he also believes about the Bigfoot phenomenon. And I got his email address from a constituent, a friend of ours from the show. And I thought about writing him a letter and to try to get the ball rolling on Bigfoot disclosure. And then I thought, wait a minute, maybe this isn't a good idea for Bigfoot. Because what is essentially my interest in this topic? It's Bigfoot. Is it to prove it? No, I don't care about proving anything to anyone. I don't have to prove anything to a person that Bigfoot exists. Do I need to them have to come out with a scientific name so that someone has to take one out and bring a body in? We attach a scientific name, we study the biology of it, and then somebody's We Are the Champions from Queen, and we have an official announcement that it's Bigfoot. But is that good for Bigfoot? I am not sure that it is. And I'm saying I'm not saying I know that it isn't. I'm saying I'm not sure that it is. Because then the natural inclination is you're going to get like that dentist who had to go over to Africa and shoot a lion and take a photo with it so he could show it around the golf course. You're going to get those types that are going to be trying to hire these outdoor guides to go out and try to hunt and kill one and turn it into a rug that they can put on the floor of their other place. And I don't know that Bigfoot needs that. I don't think it necessarily needs public protection, necessarily. People poach now, right? So what's to say that even if they protect it, do you think they're going to say, okay, this national forest, this belongs to Bigfoot? You think they're just going to say, oh, well, we'll stay there. They said this is us. I mean, they're going to migrate and go where they want to go, where the food sources are in the water, or whatever their migratory pattern is. They're going to continue to do that, whether the government recognizes them or not. So my question is Bigfoot better off being obscured, being not believed, being not recognized? Or is it better that the government comes out and says, we have a body, we've analyzed it, we're going to call it this researcher brought in a body, and we're going to look at laws to protect it, which is going to be a whole nother thing we can argue about in Washington amongst the other 77 issues that we can't agree on. This will be 78. And does it have human rights? Does it not have human rights? Should it be protected? What areas should it be given? And then it's going to just go where it wants anyway. So I think the best thing is for it to do what it's been doing for maybe thousands of years, maybe tens or hundreds of thousands of years, we don't know, and just remain in the master of the woods, anonymous, generally speaking, not harmful to humans unless the right set of circumstances present themselves, and they are few and far between. I mean, I'm not sure, but I think that's probably the best thing is not to have a greater public validation, probably, but that's a guess.
Yeah. Good point.
Good answer.
Yeah, okay. I feel you on that one.
Who's next? Is it Matthew Knapp? No, I'm sorry.
I think it's me.
Yeah, go for it, Deb.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was thinking a lot about conferences and podcasts and, all the ways that we are presenting information to the public. And one thing that I've been thinking a lot about is what responsibility do we have when we do that, and how can we be effective with that? So that's just something I wanted to brainstorm with other people who are doing that.
Can you say that one more time just to make sure we get it? What responsibility do we have with regard?
Yeah, that's it. What responsibility do we have, and how can we be effective with our messaging when we talk to the public about the phenomenon and other paranormal topics?
Matthew?
I think it's really up to the individual. It depends on your purpose. Everybody has their own goal, whether it be education or entertainment or just a hobby or just, something you're just filling your time with. Obviously, the past few years have been strange for all of us in society. COVID has changed the world and the direction people were headed. I've seen tons of people start up podcasts because of COVID, and some of them got out and some of them didn't. Like I said, for my own self, I'm just there to be kind of an advocate for the witness and getting their stories out there and allowing a platform for them to share their information regardless of what that information is. In the specific field of Bigfoot, for a long time, if you had certain claims that you were making, you got shut down. A lot of it got suppressed by the Bigfoot community itself. People talk about government suppression all the time and cover-ups and things like that, but the Bigfoot world does it too. And so I wanted to kind of change that a little bit, especially with my own background and my own beliefs. I thought that would kind of have a larger impact. So I think sharing the stories without the censorship is extremely important. As a podcaster, as someone in the media circuit, as a researcher, I think you should stick with the evidence and let the evidence lead you and document everything and just leave it at that and not form opinions. I've always said and always been an advocate of letting the evidence speak for itself. And I think that's what researchers should do. A lot of people don't really learn how to investigate or how to research and just jump into the field and start doing it and start doing their own podcast, putting their own information out there. And I think it's done a lot of damage. I think it's muddied the waters quite a bit and held us back from advancing with any type of answers or any types of real evidence that could be held to scrutiny. So yeah, that's my final answer.
Let me send that man a Venmo. Damn.
Yeah. Great. I think Matt answered for all of us.
I'm telling you, Tim and Dana.
I guess I can jump in.
Yeah.
I think it's similar to what Matt's saying. I think our responsibility is to, because your theory is your theory. So it doesn't, my theory could be different, and I don't really have theories because we're not researchers, but my theory could be different than yours. And it's just having the data and the evidence to document and to present your theory. And I think you should do due diligence, as Matt said, with that, and with, not just throwing ideas out without having, having something behind it. I think that's number one. And then I think the biggest number one responsibility is, which kind of piggybacks, just don't, just tell the truth to your best ability. I mean, that you might be wrong, but don't make up things that aren't there. And I think that's what hurts, and some of it's because people are just, they want the clickbait, they want the likes and the things on social media. But I think that would be, for me, the biggest responsibility for everyone. Just be ethical about it and be meticulous and don't be dishonest.
Yeah. And I would also say, when presenting the information, it's almost like we're teaching in a way by, bringing in people, interviewing them, hearing what they have to say. I think it's also important to keep things simple, remind people what the Patterson-Gimlin film is, this is, because I sometimes think, when we're presenting information, that a lot of this can sound like a completely foreign language for new people who are coming into the topic.
I also want to point out that the Ohio Bigfoot Conference, the MCs are the beautiful people you're seeing right there. Tim and Dana are going to be MCs at that event. When is that event? The Ohio, it's the oldest Bigfoot conference.
It's the first weekend in May.
Did that go public, by the way?
What's that?
Actually,
It's fine. I didn't.
And Tim's going to be presenting.
Yeah,
I'm going to be at the booth presenting.
Yeah,
I'm going to be at the booth schlepping books.
Okay. All right. Yeah. I know I heard it. So that's why I heard it somewhere. So that's why I wanted to get that out there so that people know that are going to that conference. We actually have a friend who's going to be doing a UFO conference the following week at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. Fellow Ohioan Kelly Chase. She's the great. UFO Rabbit Hole. She's also an author like Tim. Her book is called The UFO Rabbit Hole. So it's some synchronicities here. She's the following week to your conference. She's going to be and I'm going to tell you, man, if you would have told people again a few years ago that there was going to be a UFO conference at a hotel at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, they would have said, you are out of your mind, but I can take you to go talk to Deb and she's going to put you in her psychologist chair and everything's going to be okay. We're just going to strap down your hands. So, I mean, nobody would have believed they're going to have a UFO conference at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, and they are. So, especially if you didn't know, that's where it's told that the Roswell wreckage was transferred from Roswell, New Mexico to, I think, Love Field in Dallas, and then from there up to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, where there's all kinds of secret craziness going on there. So, Air Force Materiel Command. Anyway, Matthew Knapp, what is your topic, my friend?
Let's go with why does the government suppress that these things exist? I know you guys are obviously familiar with Todd Neese, very famous Bigfoot witness, military guy, very respected in the military community, had his sighting during an actual exercise. From the best of my recollection, he immediately reported it to his superior. We know that the government knows these things are out there. So why aren't they just saying like, yeah, these things are there? Why are they covering it up? And
I'll take this one first.
Yeah.
And I want to say I'm really heartened by the answer I heard from Cliff Barrickman on podcast the other day about this topic. But the reason that I've tried to sort of bring government thinking to to our show and to other shows that people have asked me to be on or Twitter Spaces is how they think. And the way they think is like if I were asking you to make a deal, Tim, I would say, here's the deal I had for you. And the first thing you say is, how does that benefit me? Okay, and I even saw it. I watched Tulsa King last night with Sylvester Stallone.
Let's go.
And he said, I get to what's in it for me? So for the government, for them to admit that Bigfoot is a thing, that Bigfoots are in 49 of 50 states, how does it benefit their cause as a government, which is charged with safety, with security, with public trust, and with basically to have basically a calm among the people? Anytime something happens, like balloons and so forth, the government now has to answer these questions. They don't want to answer these questions. So whether it's the REI industry, the hunting industry, everything that you've heard on other podcasts, that's true. So as I explained to Brian from Bigfoot Odyssey, I was on with him like a week ago, it's not a matter that they're said, okay, this is what you will say, and this will be an order going all the way from the Department of Interior down to every state parks commission, down to the local county parks, et cetera, et cetera. It's not necessarily that way in a grand conspiracy. I heard a Florida Fish and Wildlife official the other day, and I can't remember which podcast he was on, and he basically talks about graduating school, going out into the field with a very experienced officer on his first day. And I don't know if it was like the first week, they had a Bigfoot encounter, and he said, look, you don't write it up in a report, you don't talk about it, you just see it and you ignore it. And that's where it goes. Don't take it any further than what you just saw. And I'm paraphrasing now. This gentleman is now 20 years down the road. He's training brand new officers. What do you guys think he said to those brand new officers?
The exact same thing.
Exact same thing. And he's had multiple Bigfoot sightings that he told about. Probably about 5 of them he told on the show. And he told them, don't report it, don't talk about it. You see it and you forget it. I've also heard people that have gone to one of the California schools where they train California forest rangers, and they have like a no kidding camp that you're in for like a month. I mean, even to where the first few weeks you're not even allowed to leave the camp unless you're with a member of staff. Someone came in and spoke to them about Bigfoot. Here's what you do. Here's what you don't do. Blah, blah, blah. But they're not reporting it. So it's not in their interest. It could affect how people would interact, whether or not they would want to go hiking. Do I want to go hiking in the Catskills? I'm from Sullivan County, New York. Do I want to go up there? I mean, I heard there's a sighting. They don't even know that the BFRO exists. Most people don't even. Whereas to us, it's like, man, every week you're on there checking. Are there new reports? So that's the answer to the question. It doesn't help their cause. It doesn't help inspire safety, public trust, all these sorts of things. It only instills fear in people. But I like what Cliff Barrickman said. Mm-hmm. They're out there. They've been out there for many, many years. Don't not go in the woods because they're there. What is good to do is listen to podcasts like yours and Matt's and know what to do should you encounter one, so that if there is a family there unit and they're a little bit territorial and they're trying to get you to back off, recognize what that is, the way that you know when you see a mama bear and her cubs, and back off and maybe head back the other direction or circle around in worst case scenario. So that's why I believe it doesn't help anybody for them to admit that there's something out there that they have no control over. They probably have bodies, I'm sure, that they've looked at and scientifically know what it is. They're not in control of it, and they don't want to start a frenzy of people going out hunting these things where actually humans might get killed in the process of trying to hunt them. So that's my thought. Tim and Dana.
Do you want to take it, or you want me to take it?
Sure, I'll take it. So, I mean, because this is definitely something that comes up in discussion just between Tim and I. And we've talked about it before. And this question recently came to mind at the last Ohio Bigfoot conference. We were sitting at the VIP dinner, and we had a person that we just met and told us of an experience that he had. He chose that he did not want to be on the podcast. He did not want to come forward with who he was. But his quick story was he was traveling on the highway and saw a bunch of SUVs on the island of the highway. And they were all positioned in a way so they were blocking something that was on the ground. And he said he saw something really large and furry. And there were police cars and these black SUVs, and that's all why would SUVs be there if it was just a bear? Or so the thing that I'm getting to is that it probably does happen, that the government is suppressing this. And I agree a lot with DJ in that it would cause a lot of unnecessary, or let's say necessary, but it's just something they'd want to avoid, chaos that they would just want to avoid if possible. And basically all the things that DJ just said.
Right. And I think most from the folks we talked to on the podcast and in the book, there's different theories, but I think most of them don't think it's a global government conspiracy, but it's definitely a suppression of reports and things like that are going on out there.
Yeah, because if it's not good for our government, it's not going to be good for a foreign government either.
Yeah, it doesn't need to be a grand government conspiracy. It just needs to be a standard operating procedure amongst whether you're a national forest ranger or whether you're a state forest ranger, any Department of Interior employee. Certainly, we've heard Battle Mountain. We've heard those first-person primary source accounts from Battle Mountain that say, I was there, I saw this creature kind of thing. I saw the 3-letter agencies that were there and Mount St. Helens as well. So yeah, I have no doubt that they've collected a body, but I've told people you have to make government move from their position or they're not going to move. The reason the government moved on UFOs is not because of podcasts like this. The reason they moved is because Luis Elizondo, who was Pentagon director of the program, came out and started speaking. Christopher Mellon, who was Undersecretary of Defense for Intelligence, came out and started speaking. They brought forward Navy pilots who then went to the New York Times, and the New York Times posted a story. Boom. Now they forced them to react to UFOs. There isn't not even close to that kind of pressure for them to react to Bigfoot. And I'm not sure that it would be good if they did for the Bigfoots in these 49 states. If we did have a Lou Elizondo and Bigfoot who forced them to admit it, I think the consequences would somehow change the Bigfoot's ecosystem or their way of life, and there would be more people looking for them. And that could end in violence. You never know. I don't think it's worth it to shift that paradigm. Money Nathan.
Yeah, I mean, you guys have nailed it. I think that's the reason. It's too complicated to talk about it. They may not have all the answers either, and just to acknowledge it. You got to answer. You got to then answer all these questions. It's just like what happened with this whole balloon fiasco and these objects they shot down. It's like now I got to answer these questions. And we couldn't find it. We stopped searching for it. So yeah, I mean, that's, end of story, case closed. We're done. And, they just don't want to have to talk about it unless they really have to. So, I agree with the things that you said earlier too, DJ. It's, probably for their own benefit that they're just kind of left alone.
I think the only thing I worry about with being left alone is, I mean, I think still 60% of the U.S. is uninhabited, which is great. But I think as population increases, not only Bigfoot, but all animals, all creatures that aren't, Homo sapiens are going to be in jeopardy. And I think we're going to continue to do that. I think that's the only thing that I worry about not bringing it out is that, they're doing fine now. And we still have, again, 60% of the land that's not inhabited, but it's getting smaller,
That's right, Tim. I was going to say things change with time. So we can only talk about, we're looking at a snapshot in time of our lives. That's all we have to work with. You're right. Things could change in the future where that becomes untenable because we've just taken up every bit of farmland. But then you're going to have problems with crops and, feeding people and vegetation and everything else. But you're right. That paradigm could shift in an area where something does need to be done for them because they're being starved out of their resources. That's possible.
But don't you think just the fact that they do suppress it and that they have for so long, that kind of tells you some things? I mean, if this were just an undiscovered primate, why wouldn't they acknowledge it? It would just be another part of the wildlife. It would just be like, oh, here's a new species of primate that's in North America. They didn't suppress the existence of the gorilla. They acknowledge that gorillas exist. So why is this different?
Actually,
and King Kong too. In Godzilla. I mean, they came out with that. I don't see why this is.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Dana.
That was Deb.
I actually had something. If I just want to point out in this lovely book called UFO Rabbit Hole, it was brought up that the gorilla was initially ignored and not believed in until the late 1800s when they finally got a body, even though indigenous people said it existed. So it was not that long ago that we even admitted that gorillas existed. And in the chat, someone mentioned the giant squid. That was, no one was acknowledging that existed. Even the platypus that was mentioned also in Kelly Chase's book, they didn't want to acknowledge it. But I do think that there is another element to this, that the fact that we are, as a population, just running to get our DNA tested, and a lot of people are, questioning our ancestry. I think that might be another factor to consider. Because not only in hearing about Bigfoot, but also in hearing about non-human intelligence, people are always saying, oh, I hear there's some human DNA mixed in there. So I think that might be a factor. I know that's a little conspiratorial, but I'm intrigued by the fact that I am hugely Neanderthal. I don't know why.
What?
What
are you going to tell us?
That's why she has incredible strength.
I know. I have an excessive amount of Neanderthal DNA. And there's some populations on the earth where they don't know where their DNA come from. Like they just have chunks that they don't know the ancestry of. So that could be potentially part of it. Like again, it goes to that ego that we have as humans. Like we're like, oh, we're the top dogs, blah blah blah. And people don't want to admit that there might be something else, like a big hairy primate that's involved in all that.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I agree with you, and I think that it confronts us with ethical questions that we're not ready to wrestle with, and you're seeing this happen too with a lot of other studies that are going on now that are taking a harder look at different animals and the tools that they create or the potential language which they might have. And if we kind of go down that path and go, oh, well, like certain octopus or squid, like they seem to have a culture. They seem to they seem to be intelligent, or dolphins, whatever. Like then we have to go, well, can we eat them? Like is this okay for us to like dominate them in the way that we have? And so I think in some ways we've inherited a lot of thinking about the world from, sort of the dawn of naturalism and colonialism, which were sort of happening at the same time. The British Empire kind of taking over everything, taking all these artifacts back to to the British Museum, like essentially kind of ruling over having dominion over the world and putting humans at the very top of this pyramid to just sort of do with the world as we please, right? And that kind of being, thinking, and doing has like terrible ramifications, of which we're now starting to see the results of that. Like that thinking, that behavior is coming home to roost, and we're now wrestling with those consequences environmentally, and I think with these areas as well. And we're going to continue to do that. I mean, they're trying to develop AI right now that's going to listen to animal sounds and communications in the hopes of translating that to some kind of language, where we might even be able to communicate with animals through an AI interpretation, AI interpreter. Wow. So I mean, this is where we're headed, and it's going to really cause a lot of interesting and difficult questions for us. A lot of introspection, I think, for the human species.
Can you imagine, like, we could know what our cats are talking about?
You may not want to know, right?
Yeah, I know.
According to the intent that AI creates for them.
Oh,
well, yeah, that's true.
Matthew,
I mean, just because they can listen doesn't mean they're going to get that. They're going to understand, right?
Right. That's pretty crazy.
Even amongst us, we can listen and not hear.
Exactly.
Or hear and not listen.
Absolutely.
Even amongst, and we speak the same language. All right, so we're running out of time, but I want to get Tim and Dana have a topic that we can all consider, and we'll kind of do this quick hitter fashion. Please go ahead, ma'am and sir.
Oh, I guess I'll do one.
Yeah, you do it.
Okay, I already had.
You guys are going to get one together, so you got to agree on this.
Yeah, this is together.
No, we are together on this.
One, yeah.
Right. Yes.
So, if you're sitting around the dinner table, I think it's now, and I don't know if it's because of what just came out recently, but I think UAPs, UFOs seem to be more accepted than the actual possibility of Bigfoot in the common world. Why do you guys think that is?
Okay, so why are UFOs more accepted than Bigfoot in the common world?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm gonna let's go Matt, Debs, and then myself and Money.
I think it all comes down to ego. I think more people are willing to accept that we're not the only intelligent things in the entire universe, where they're not willing to accept that, hey, there's these giant hairy things that live right under our noses and we don't know about it. And I really think that's what it boils down to at the end of the day.
Did he say I had some hair under my nose?
Yeah, right.
Here, hold on. I'll get it.
Debs.
Okay, so I keep doing hashtag Bigfoot in the city because I am not an outdoors person. But so UFOs.
I thought you and I were going to go in the woods in Maryland and do some bushcraft skills.
If there's a mosquito, I don't even go in my backyard. Okay, so I honestly think that because the UFO can be seen anywhere, like over water, over cities, whether or not you're outdoorsy, that it kind of comes to us. Bigfoot is something people kind of have to go to, if that makes sense.
That does make sense.
And Deb, we're neighbors. If you're in Maryland, we live in Delaware.
Sweet. Maybe you have a forest that doesn't have mosquitoes I can visit to go.
No, we're close to the water, so
we'll get
you have water everywhere.
Mosquito netting over the hat. So I mean, I've already actually answered this question in the previous time when I spoke. We're humans, and we believe what we see in most cases, unless we're talking about our religious preferences, what we consider God or call God in different religions call them something else. So we just talked about a major event that put UFOs in everybody's face. So now all these the Pentagon director Christopher Mellon, they're on 60 Minutes, they're on CNN, they're on Fox News, they're on MSNBC. So now everyone and 30 pages of legislation. So that's why Bigfoot UAPs are more accepted. If we were to turn that 180 degrees around, and Lou Elizondo said there's a Bigfoot, I have evidence of it, I'm going to bring you in these army guys, we're going to show you video, whatever the case may be. Everything that he did, Christopher Mellon, a couple of army guys instead of pilots that interacted with one or shot or killed one, and then it's in the New York Times, everybody would believe Bigfoot exists and they would still doubt UFOs. That's my take on it. Money.
Yeah, totally agree. And I mentioned this before, but like society and human beings, like we need official permission to be interested in something. Like, so when we have government officials, when we have anything that any voice that is looked at as a voice of authority saying there's a there, then we look at that and go, oh, well, I guess we have permission now to like talk about, like, I've always been interested in it. I didn't want to bring it up before, but it sounds like we can say that out loud and I'm not going to get funny looks. So like that's a huge reason why they're more accepted. I think that there are other aspects of UAP that make them easier to accept as well, and that's there's a like our sort of our infatuation with technology, like it really is connected to UAP. This otherworldly advanced species with incredible technology that can do things that we can only imagine, or that would be like magic to us. Like that's super appealing. It appeals to our sense of our need for power, our need for control. It also kind of dovetails with our like existential dread. Maybe they have cures for our terrible diseases. Maybe they can solve our energy crisis. Maybe they, so there's a lot of things about UAP that I think make folks feel good about exploring. But I would argue that this, as DJ's pointed this out too tonight, that the UAP issue does, I think, begin driving a wedge into consensus reality that makes room for these other experiences that people have. And we then have to begin questioning everything that we think that we know, everything that we thought was possible or not possible. Things begin everything gets put back on the table. We go, well, maybe there is something to this, and I think that's the real positive way to look at this, that we're on the cusp of new kind of discoveries, and it's going to change, shake us out of our like stupor that we've been
malaise
in for a while. Yeah, exactly. Just like this is just, thinking that we knew everything. Well, I mean, this is how paradigm shifts happen, right? Like they basically hit you like a meteor from nowhere. Like your world is totally changed. Think of 9/11, think of COVID. Like these are things that happen to us, and we think, oh, that could never happen. A banking crisis or a pandemic like that could never happen. But then it happens, and we have to, like, our entire world changes as a result. So I think that UAP and Bigfoot and a host of other things are doing that, and it's ultimately a good thing, although it does create a lot of difficult, maybe some sleepless nights for some folks, kind of having to wrestle with these things.
Nathan, I want to just come back on two things. I think the popular 2023 human that you're talking about is that person who reads popular science and popular mechanics and is so connected to the tech aspect of it. There's so many, because everybody has an iPhone, everyone has a tablet or an iPad, or and so that whole aspect of the UAP is written right into those pages of popular mechanics, where we, in some cases, fantasize about technologies that don't even exist yet. And I think that's what you're talking about. The second thing I wanted to ask you about, let me see if I remember. Yeah, I think I lost what it was. There was something I wanted you to recite, if you would, for Tim and Dana, basically what Lou Elizondo said about the what if everything. If you remember that speech that he gave.
Right.
And Tim and Dana, do you know who Lou Elizondo is?
No, I don't know. Except until I started listening to him.
Well, I think you already mentioned it before.
Yeah. Okay, Nathan will go ahead and.
Yeah, so real quickly, and I'll paraphrase. So, and Lou Elizondo was the director of a program inside the Pentagon that looked at UFOs and investigated UAP, and he came forward and exposed secretly. Secretly he came forward publicly and acknowledged that this was a thing we were doing. He's been a staunch advocate for getting us to explore this more explicitly and getting Congress and our government to take it seriously. Anyway, on one of the podcasts, his many appearances, he talks about the way in which UAP will change like everything that we think we know. And I think that Bigfoot does that too. It kind of rewrites the things that we thought we knew to be true. And it confronts us in our hubris or thinking that we had it all figured out. And then when we realize we didn't have it all figured out, and that it's not as simple as, humanity being sort of like the top of the food chain and the most intelligent species there is, and to then going from there to like, well, no, there are like lots of intelligent species that are out there. Not, some more intelligent than humans, some a little less intelligent, or maybe similarly intelligent. And what does that mean for everyone? It changes everything. It changes our entire relationship to the natural world. It reopens and the deeper sort of conversations that we have about our beliefs and the afterlife. And there are a whole kind of host of things that change because of this discovery. And, think about other discoveries that have done this for us as well. Discovering when the West discovered, the Americas and everything. I mean, it totally changed the way we thought about the world. And it changed the West. It changed the people who lived here before, the West got here, in very bad ways for them. And everything was different after that. So I think that we've kind of forgotten that can still happen, right? I think that's really the lesson here. We've forgotten that can still happen, that these huge changes can still occur. And we've gotten really comfortable with this incremental change that we just like, well, we're just like, we'll learn a little something new. And like our PhDs, like they'll learn a little new thing about, quantum something or whatever. But it's just like this incremental change. We don't believe that a sort of tectonic shift can occur in what we know, what we think we know, that could rewrite everything. And I think that's the potential, and I would argue is the potential of these topics.
I want to, and I'll put you guys up on the screen. It's very thought provoking, but to give a little bit of further context, if we were to take the person in the government who's come public, of all the people that have the most information about cryptids, paranormal, and ufology, and I'll include Bigfoot in cryptid, right? Lou Elizondo is the most knowledgeable person, the most read in person to come public, who quit his job in the Pentagon because they wouldn't allow him to brief Secretary of Defense, I believe, James Mattis at the time. So he quit in protest because they wouldn't let him brief him on what he knew. The jarring things that he said about this that make any of us uncomfortable is he said, what if everything that your parents told you, that your teachers told you in school, that what your pastors told you is not how it really is? Now, what he knows and what he's been informed that caused him to say that, we can only guess, because he's not going to break his NDA and put himself in jail. But it's very jarring when you say, what if everything you learned was true, was not really how it is? And so if you apply that, if you extrapolate that out to Bigfoot, that is the mindset that somebody like me, who hasn't been in this very long, I'm studying it harder than I'm studying UFOs. I'll put it to you that way. But I come into it being, we don't know everything. We think a lot of things, and there are a lot of things that are evident. There's a lot of evidence that that we can draw conjecture from and say, this is evident about this creature. What's beyond that? Don't know. So with that, give you guys some stuff to think about. Let's go with Cabby Goodbye, starting with Matthew Knapp.
It's been great. Really enjoyed this one. It was nice meeting the two of you. I hope the Bigfoot conversation continues in the future between us. Yeah, I'm just kind of sitting here in awe of the conversation that's just taken place here. And
yeah, it's
I've
been
really
cool
enjoyed talking to you guys.
Definitely a lot different than our normal conversations, for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But you know what? Before I go to Debs, I would like you guys to just talk about. I'm going to put your website. Julie typed it up here. There it is, right? Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Nathan. You got it. Go ahead and do what you just did. And go ahead and please promote everything you guys got going on. It's all going to be in the show notes, everything that you've given us. But please go ahead and speak about it.
Sure. So if you go to the bigfootinfluencers.com, I try to keep that updated with how you can buy the book, how you can follow the podcast, continuously work on trying to get some influencers data in there so we can connect the world with all of the other folks like Matt and folks that are out there. And if you go to YouTube, go to the Untold Radio Network, and you'll find our podcast as well as 8 or 9 of them. And there's all kinds of podcasts. There's not just Bigfoot podcasts. So again, it's Doug Hychak, who Deb actually was the first to capture the giant squid on film and living in its natural habitat. So that's Doug Hychak, who's and
awesome.
And sons, Blaine and Alex. So yeah, just go to bigfootinfluencers.com and you can find us.
Yeah, and our podcast is mainly, it's just introducing the world to all of the people in the world of Bigfoot who have an influence. And so you get to know these people, we crack up with them. You get to know a little bit about their personal lives, but then, we hear their witness experience. And so you're just getting to know the researchers and the influencers. And our approach to it is, at least mine is to come at it from so people who are new into the subject can easily watch it. But at the same time, it's not boring to people who already know a lot of stuff already.
I love your questions. You guys worked hard to keep Jeff Meldrum on track and make sure that he's saying it for the lowest common denominator. I felt your pain as a podcaster. I was in the gym working out, listening to it. It's great.
And he's awesome. He
is
funny.
awesome.
I love him. I want to get him on the show. I really do. So Debs, go with your Cabby goodbyes, please, ma'am.
Yes, I wanted to say thank you for coming. You guys were amazing. I'm really intrigued by what you've done with the book. I'm probably going to end up buying that, even though I said I would stop buying books. And I hope that you are going to come back one day to talk to us, because I'd like to know a little bit more about the conferences and just all the data that you guys are getting. I love data.
Yes, Deb, it was nice meeting you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's been awesome having you guys with us, and I know you guys study influencers and promote them, but you've influenced us tonight, and I really appreciate that. It's inspiring to see the work that you're doing, and it's really cool to see the chemistry that you have. It's not often where you find a couple that is both into the same thing, with these kinds of topics. At least I speak from my own experience in that regard.
Well, they do say couples who Bigfoot together stay together.
I love that. Well, I'm glad to hear that's true. So I think that's really exciting, and we're rooting for you guys, pulling for you, and excited for the things that you'll do. Looking forward to the second book, Tim, that you're working on. And here's to some bigger acknowledgments. Hopefully we get that kind of validation that we're hoping for.
Thanks, Nathan.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and for finally, I want to say thank you so much. You guys came in the chat. You asked great questions. We connected after the show on DM. And for people who are rookies like us, that other than Matt, I mean, we don't really know very much. Nathan introduced me to the Bigfoot topic. I was completely caught off guard, threw my entire world into a spin. I was like, oh my God, I got to find out and try to understand Bigfoot. And I'm enjoying so much. But yes, sir.
If you get the book, DJ,
yes, sir,
it'll bring you into the world.
I will get the book, my friend. I need to read I actually just bought one that we had Terry Wendell on, and we bought the one about the Meadow Project in Alabama. I just started reading that one, but I will get your book as well and read your book.
Nice.
But
Thanks, DJ.
No, thank you. I really appreciate, like I said, you guys taking our show seriously, coming in the cab, seeing how we do it, and just acknowledging
awesome.
us.
I love your energy. Love it. Love it, because when I try to get all energetic and happy, Tim like starts kicking me under the table, like, stop being so goofy. But I love your energy.
Thank you so much, man. We just try to do a show that's us, and the reason why is it's authentic. You know what Nathan's doing. He's not giving you anything extra. He's just doing him. Debs, same thing with Matt, who's a new cabbie here, and myself. This is just me. You know what I mean? And
That's cool.
I just to Suffolk. I mean, I had a sighting in 1982 of a UFO. I didn't talk about it for my entire Air Force career. My wife didn't even know. My brother and my father didn't even know. My mother didn't know. So, because I didn't think anybody would believe me. So, I'm one of the people that would, that you would be bringing into the light. You know what I'm saying? So it's been great to be able to come and talk about it and not be ashamed, So thank you so much. I really appreciate you guys.
Thanks, guys. It was great being here. Thank you.
Amazing.
Yeah, we will speak to you again. And for Mr. Matt Knapp, for Debs, for Money Nathan, and for Tim and Dana, this is DJ saying peace.
Bye,
One
guys.
love. We'll see you down the road, and we always wonder what's up around the bend.
Take care, guys. Thanks again for having us so much.